Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to our second post-fight interview after a fight with Adam, 94. I'm here with Aren again, and we're going to talk a little bit about things we did differently this time, how the fight went, and then also assessing some of our damage afterwards. So just to get us kicked off, Aren, can you talk about any special modifications or decisions and strategy we made going into the fight?
Well, the first thing we did differently is figure out Zoom backgrounds. So that's nice. Going into the Adam 94 fight, we had limited data points on these guys, and that's how a lot of BattleBots is, as far as how many times you get to test stuff, how many times you get to see people operate, that type of thing. So the people have competed for a while are a bit of a disadvantage. So Adam 94, we had one data point, and that was their fight against Big Dill, which it appeared they came out of the square and just started spinning. So going into the fight, we're very much like, I don't know how they're going to do as far as what they're going to change from their first fight. And so from our preparation side of stuff, we had wanted to solve our issues from the previous fight, which we talked about in the previous episode. And then we chose to go with this. You can tell the armor looks totally unscratched in this one. It's unvalkyried. It's a different set of armor, actually.
Yeah. So
which saves a bit of weight.
We have some pictures of this for everybody.
Pre-fight photo up.
Cool. So you can see here our unscratched armor, and the secret is that there are twin tantrums. So
we do have two robots and a decent amount of spares.
Mm-hmm.
So the side armor is actually a little shorter, which saves a bit of weight, and then obviously the biggest difference is cosmetically is the lack of fists and flames. We didn't feel right just leaving just the sticks, and we had a 3D printer in the pit. So between teammates Alex and Zach, and then David as well, got these painted and gussied up and stuck on there.
Yeah, if you pay attention to the fight,
if you pay attention to the fight, you'll see how fast they fly off. These are little 3D printed fists to take a stand-in for the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things, just performance-wise, even just the wait for the batteries, is the first hit in the Valkyrie fight, the flamethrower tubes came off and one of them got stuck underneath us and high centered us. So bringing something that can take you out that's attached to your own robot into a fight is not a good idea. So that's one of the biggest reasons for the fist missing as well.
Totally.
The other thing you'll notice for this particular fight is we swapped out the front wedge for wedgelets in this case. It's different front end geometry. We don't need to worry about glancing a sideways horizontal spinning weapon upwards. So this is the preferred front end for facing that type of robot.
Cool. So what were some of the best and worst moments of the fight, would you say? And how did you feel coming right out of the fight? Here's just a picture. You can see the fist falling off like Aren was mentioning.
Yeah, so fist flying can mean many things.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, falling off. So going into the fight, as I said on the show, it was like, we're just gonna drive around, get the weapon up to speed, and see how well they're driving. And then I misjudge a distance and drive at a decent speed directly into their weapon, which, if you notice, is a sizable weapon. And sent the bot flying. And there's certain things that go through your head when you see something you worked on like that flying through the air. And happily, in this particular instance, it was, it'll be fine. Of knowing how well the robot is armored and how the self-rider has been behaving. So took the hit, hopped back up, and then for the rest of the fight, I think there are some generous comments made by Chris and Kenny with regards to the weapon's effectiveness and what the weapon was doing. So one of the tricks to practicing with BattleBot is usually you don't have a weapon on, because there's very few safe ways to do that.
Right, like in parking lots or in other open spaces.
So all of the practice we got, which was a fair amount, many hours, which is not what most teams can say, was against either previous. We made a prototype drivetrain last fall and drove against that. We did some sparring with Duck. Hal was nice enough to bring Duck out to play, and that type of stuff. But that leads to mentally treating it like a wedge, as far as you're not having to time an attack, you're not having to hold back and let something get spun up. And I think I've definitely been learning, and Dylan, the co-driver, has been yelling at me during the first 2 fights. So I can't get the weapon up to speed because you're running it into them too often. And that's definitely a habit you can see on display here. They pop up a couple times and flip over, etc. That's all their own weapon hitting us to flip them. So all the energy is actually provided by them in all those collisions. I do think, if I remember right, Yash said afterwards they ended up losing. I think drive motors got sad, but don't quote me on that. But obviously the drive was dead at the end of the match.
So
yeah,
I guess this leads us to one of the questions from one of our supporters. Eric on Instagram asked, how many hits did we get with the weapon?
I think rewatching the fight, I'd count it as like 2.5, but like nowhere near up to full speed. You could hear the weapon at the end of the fight and the commentary from the presenters on how angry it does sound.
Yeah.
If you notice, you didn't hear that during the fight because I had Tantrum nicely positioned underneath Adam 94 and would not let them go.
Definitely. So that also relates to our next question from Gary, who asked, what was the Tantrum team satisfied by the damage that we actually did against Adam 94?
I'm gonna go with no. I'm happy to get a knockout, especially coming off of a silly win that we should have been more prepared for and not ridden the line as close as we did. I wouldn't. The weapon didn't do what I wanted. The rest of the robot performed great. Like the fact we were able to tank that big of a hit. If you look at the spinner on App 94, it's no joke.
Sure.
If once they sort out some of the drive issues from a traction perspective, that will be a very scary robot. So I'm super happy with how the robot drove, despite some of the things. Like you can tell, I'm getting used to this robot in the box. I've driven a lot in parking lots, but box is a different thing.
Cool. So then for our last segment, let me just get this picture up again. So what damage did we take and what did we do to fix it? And how are things in the robot looking?
Well, this picture is not from the right fight.
Oh, sorry guys.
Unless
Slack
we
had me
magically
confused.
Unless we magically change the armor.
All right, you didn't see anything. That was my fault. But what damage did we take and how are things looking now?
Yeah, so the actual impact that happened that launched us. So our outer armor is 3/8 AR 400, 3/8 thick. There was a decent dent left in it from, and by decent I mean it moved the bottom edge, I don't know, maybe 5/8 of an inch back territory. Left in the armor from that, which is still plenty of clearance behind it to our wheel or anything important. So we were able to go to the hydraulic press and flatten that out some. I'm completely non-functional damage. It's just a piece of metal is now a little bent. Okay. It made the armor more annoying to take on and off, but it's a tolerance issue. And then there were some sweet chunks taken out of the top edge, which if you listen to Yasha's interview at the start before the fight on the episode, you could tell he says their weapon is designed more to take chunks out as opposed to grinding and making a lot of sparks. And there's some pretty nice little notches that we'll post up pictures after when we post this. Those nice little notches that are pretty clean machining marks off the top of the armor, which are some of the pops that flip them up and over.
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing for me from this fight was that our self-righting mechanism worked pretty effectively. I was pretty nervous watching, even though the fight had already happened, watching it back when we got flipped over, I was like, uh-oh. So that was really exciting.
I know it works, but please work.
Yeah, that was one of like our totally new mechanisms that we added this year. A lot of like the drive and the punch and so on, was iterated.
Yeah, last season we ended 2 matches upside down. One of them, technically, per the judges we won, but per reality we both lost.
Right. So we learned our lesson, which is come to BattleBots with the self-righting mechanism because there's some powerful robots and you will be upside down at one point. So cool.
And whatever it is, test them more often.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Awesome. So That's all we have. Thank you so much to the people who submitted questions. Make sure next time we fight, keep your questions in mind, and we will be doing this again. Follow us on Instagram at seems.reasonable. That's the name of our team. So just to clear up any confusion. And that's all. Thank you so much. Leave any questions you have in the comments as well. So we'll answer them like we did last week. And if you have any suggestions or feedback for what you want to see from us, we are happy to answer them or take that into account.
Yep.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.